As soon as you're ready, Dante, we're a few minutes late here. Well, good morning, everyone. Why don't we start with a word of prayer before we get into our lesson this morning? Our Father in heaven, we are so thankful for you and what you've done for us, what you've put in place for us. We just ask that you would help us to find the nuggets you have in this lesson for us today, Lord. Send your Holy Spirit to be here and touch our minds, anoint our lips. Help us to know what you have for us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I will introduce people. I think everybody knows who they are. This is Barbara over here on my left. Over here is Dante and Golly on the end, and I'm Buck. I don't know if that matters or not, but you know who we are now. Our lesson today is of the Israelites and their rebellions and their restlessness. And kind of like we are today, I think we tend to be a lot like these Israelites. We're wandering in the wilderness and looking for the promised land and not really fully understanding what it takes to get there. But maybe this will help us. Any thoughts before we get going here on something that has really touched your mind? Or
well, I have to say, when I was reading and here and studying, it was talking about the earthquake, and all of a sudden the whole house started shaking, and I said, "Wow, I knew it was an earthquake coming." So it was interesting that it was just the time when I was reading about the earthquake in the study here.
That got your attention, didn't it? I'll tell you what, it got mine. Yeah, that's the first earthquake I've ever felt in California. Wow. I've been through a bunch of them, but I happened to be in the right spot where the doors were rattling and things were kind of moving around. And
well, if you're quiet, It's like the earthquake in San Francisco. It was like I was laying in bed and you could feel it. But if you're up walking around, you don't always feel the earthquake.
That's
People
right.
talk about it, but if you're busy, you don't think about it.
Well, if you're driving in a car or a truck or whatever, you don't even notice it. But boy, that one I noticed. Okay.
When I saw the title "Restless and Rebellious," it came to my mind a kid or children.
Right.
That's always jumping, hopping around, doing stuff that are not supposed to, but they're kids.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that, and the lesson a little bit that I went through, is exactly as Brother Buck say. Some of us is just like that. They're Israelis. We're like kids, rebellious kids, that we just want to do our own will. We want to do whatever we want, not what the Father says that we are supposed to do.
That's why when we read the Bible and we think about it, we are God's children. And they were the children of Israel, was God's, all down through the centuries. If we really think about it, in our own family, how our children do, like you said, that we can understand how God felt in things and how we feel. And so we can connect with God in that way, too.
And usually the children don't take to instruction that well. There's a little bit of rebellion involved, and well, you said that, but do I really have to do that type of thing? And that's kind of the way we are as adults, and the way these Israelites were in the wilderness. It's pretty sad. So we need to talk about the lesson here, restless in the wilderness. what are the Israelites complaining about? And the first, they were less than a year out of Egypt. They'd just been miraculously taken out of Egypt and saw all these miracles take place in their lives. And here they are, right away, complaining, and things weren't right. They actually wanted to go back to Egypt, for crying out loud. And what was it about? Does anybody remember or have
Food.
food?
They wanted meat,
They
not just that old manna.
That's exactly right. They wanted the meat and the spices and whatever Egypt had, which they had grown accustomed to. And they thought they were being punished by being out here eating this miracle food, for crying out loud.
You know, it's interesting how we humans are, this race. Because you tell a kid, don't do it, and he doesn't undo it. They told us, do not pass the speed limit, and we pass it. Don't do this, and we do it. Don't drink, we drink. Don't do drugs, and we do it. It's like our brain is like, when as soon as it hears the word no, it's like, yes, go do it.
Got it.
You tell somebody, but don't tell nobody. He goes to tell, these people, they were coming out of Egypt, where they had been slaves, where they had suffered, where they had been, where their God was being taken away from them. They couldn't perhaps worship their God as they were taught to do it. So now they're coming out of this, let's say they're coming out of jail, and they're going to the freedom. And instead of them being happy, because now they're leaving jail, or you know, their life, their old life, it's like, man, I miss that beer. I miss the cigar. I missed it. I know it's bad for me, but oh boy, I missed it. That's what it comes to my mind. We humans, that's the way sometimes we are. I'm not saying all, but these people are an example for us. That some of us live our whole lives. We're going on the right path, but we still miss some of the stuff that we're leaving behind.
That's right. That's right.
You don't supposed to look back. You don't look back. You keep your eyes on Jesus and keep going forward, just like Paul told us.
He's our example, our only example. We can't look to another person. We can't look to anything but Jesus Christ. That's the absolute fact, yes. So the Lord actually punished these people. What did he do? Did you get to that part? To get their attention when this rebellion took place?
Well, of course, in the beginning of chapter 11, we see that immediately after they started complaining, he set a bit of a fire in the midst of their camp. In Patriarchs and Prophets, Sister White writes that those who were the most guilty, the most restless in the rebellion, were actually struck by lightning.
But it was around the outside of the camp, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if that isn't where the mixed multitude would be camped, you know, on the outer edges. And that's the people who are probably leading in the rebellion more than, so just speculating. It just seems logical to me for some reason.
Well, we know that God gave them a yes to what they wanted.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And they paid heavily for it.
Yep, that's right. And they repented.
They gave them all the meat they wanted. What was it, 2 cubits high all around on one side and all the other? And they were just stuffing themselves. Can you imagine? Well, I don't know if they got the, we nowadays, if you left meat and stuff out, they'd have, what they call that stuff?
It'd be jerky overnight, probably.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what it was, but you get, what is it? Food poisoning,
yeah.
And everything, and they paid for it.
A lot of them died, didn't they? And choked to death or whatever it says. They were punished for their crazy rebellion.
You know, interesting, for meat, because they wanted meat, it's like how can I say this? They exchanged their salvation for a piece of meat.
Mm.
They, like I said, this is an example for us. And whatever there is out there, like me personally, and I have to confess, you guys, some of you guys know I still have birds, game birds, and I'm fighting for it, and I'm fighting. I said I left everything else. I have left out everything else but my birds. And there's moments that I'm at work and I'm thinking, would I risk my salvation for birds? Or am I? Because this is what happened to them. They had everything. When you're with God, or you're on God's hand, you need nothing else. He will provide for you. He will take care of you. He will fulfill perhaps your needs, not your wants.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's just this little thing that will be bothering you, and for that, it's like the mosquito. And then until you get mad, and you start cursing, and you start saying this, and you start like, oh my God, I'm a Christian. And these people, for me, they exchanged, because some of them died, so they exchanged their lives for me. And me, I'm thinking, am I going to exchange my salvation for this?
Right.
I better set them aside.
Yeah, and we tend to be like that, don't we? Yeah. It's not just the Israelites, it's the spiritual Israelites, which we are. We're the new Israel here, so. God respond. Go ahead, Dante.
Oh, thank you, Elder Buck. I was just thinking about a previous comment earlier from Brother Gali and how they were just getting out of bondage from the Egyptians. And it's already been, according to the quarterly, over a year or so since they had been out.
Right.
And they had all these miracles, and they were still complaining. And then the moment they lost their meat, they were just whining and complaining and this and that. And then they were just saying, I remember the leeks that we had, the onions and the garlic and all of that. And we have this manna, this seed, this grain. Sometimes it reminds me of what we as Christians face. We profess to follow God, and we profess to serve Him. But there's moments where at times Satan tempts us to look back and think about all of the pleasures that we had in sin. And it kind of reminds me of what he did when he was tempting Jesus, when he was showing him all the kingdoms of the world and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And the thing was, as Sister White writes in Desire of Ages, how he hid all of the sinfulness and only revealed the good. Mm-hmm. And the splendor, the majestic stuff. Yeah. And that's what sin does. We lose sight of that, the negative effects, the downsides, the grief and misery that we had while we tried finding the pleasure in that. And maybe it does have a temporary pleasure, but we lose sight of the curses that we had faced while we were under sin. And that's why it is so important to look to Jesus always. It's not always going to be a roller coaster and a carnival, but it is important. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that it is always important to look to Jesus, because when we start looking back at our past lives, we're going to be wanting those pleasures instead of following God, and we put ourselves under risk to turn away from Him.
That's right. It's a terrible risk to turn your back on stuff that we know. We absolutely know, and still take a little chance over here, and a little chance over here, and yeah, it just makes no sense at all. Lose your salvation over something like that. My goodness.
I know I was talking to somebody, used to come, and they chose not to go right now to church and follow. And, as children, when they're young, even when, some of you are still pretty young, but some of us are older, and we have gone through a lot of things in our life, especially if you went away to school, to academy, or the grade school that we used to have here and things. And other kids are doing this and other kids are doing that, and so you're just trying to fit in. You want to fit in. And as the years go by, You fit in all right, but you did some of the things that later you thought, I shouldn't have did that. I shouldn't have did that. And some of the things you chose to do, as we will eventually get there, there are repercussions from it. We will have to pay the consequences. God will forgive, but the consequences are not always kept from us. We have to pay for some of it. And the problem is that too often our families or other people have to pay it with us because of how we were, the choices we made. And each one of us, as we make our choices, our children will see these things. Some of them will choose to go the same way. I was at my sister's funeral a few years ago, and I heard some of the children talking. They were older children, and they were thinking, yeah, you remember when Mom used to make us do this, and Mom used to make us do that, and they'd laugh and, and going on, well, they don't have to do it anymore, But I was listening, and I think, how sad, because we as parents sometimes do make things harder on our families growing up than should be, because we were taught by somebody that believed a little harder. But you can be too soft with them too, and it's they rebel. They don't want to do it because they wanted their freedom too. And my mouth's going on. But we all have to pay the consequences one way or another, and not just ourselves. Our families and other people around have watched us. They pay the consequences with us. But God does forgive.
Absolutely. But there are consequences that are the result of what we've done, that's for sure. And that has to be paid. There's a price to be paid. And very rarely you can escape it. Everything that you do that's against right has consequences. And even, you just have to live with it.
But thank God
Christ
that
does
He
forgive,
forgives.
absolutely right. But you still go through some trying times because of what you've done in the past, absolutely.
And I wonder myself, sometimes our children and other people, young people and everything, they are doing this. And I was talking to someone just this past week that they were in a car accident. They saw stuff going on ahead down the road. And a truck hit another car or something or other. But the woman that was in the car ended up dead. And I was thinking about the person I was talking to, and I thought, and it goes for all of us. When we're doing things, if we're not right with God, what happens if we do die? I mean, our heartbeat is only one beat away, 1 second, and you're gone. There's no chance to go back and say you're sorry then. Is it worth losing your eternal life, having your own way?
The answer is obviously no. It's not worth it. Yeah, it's crazy thinking, but yet we don't think that way. We think, a lot of times I think we think the Lord is always going to just protect us and everything is going to be fine. And you don't really think of, the devil doesn't give us the pros and cons. He just gives us the
good stuff.
The good looking stuff, yeah. He doesn't tell us about the other side of these issues.
Well, that's like we're reading in here, God did protect them. He took care of them, did these miracles, food and water and all the wonderful things. But God did allow things to happen along the way. Test, lessons for us besides the knowing that we will have to go through things, testing time to see if we are faithful to God. And like when the spies went over to look and they came back and complained, but Joshua and Caleb, we can do it. No. But they're the ones that got to go over the promised land. They got to go to the promised land, but the other people didn't.
Right.
But they suffer because they weren't willing to listen and to obey God. And I believe they weren't willing to give up their lifestyle that they had, perhaps. Because let's picture this. The Israelites were slaves. They were people that were working every day, 24 hours perhaps. I don't know. I've seen some movies how they treat them, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they're suffering. But at the same time, they're like, oh, God, help us. Oh, Lord, God of Israel, don't forget us here. And then when God says, okay, I'm taking my people out, they were like, yeah, we're leaving. Now they're out, and now they're like, oh, where's the meat? Oh, remember over there. So you have to give up something to remember. Jesus gave up his own kingdom and heaven when he came down to earth. And he suffered all the things that we have to suffer and all the things that we have to go through, he did. So he gave up something. And us, like the Israelites, they go out and they're like, oh no, I wish I could be back there. Oh man, this is so hot. Maybe I have a big beer right now and it's going to cool me down. No, it doesn't work like that. You walk out, you trust God and him as a father when he tells you do this. It's not like, why? No, okay, Father, I'll do it. Because he knows what's best for us. But it's always us the problem, not him.
Absolutely. And look how soon they forgot about their troubles. I mean, they've been in slavery for 40 years or so, and then go out here and everything is provided for them. They're seeing miracles every step of the way. Their shoes didn't wear out. I mean, everything was just going terrific. Every need was met. And they forget all about the problems and choose to go back.
Maybe
By
the problem.
the way, if there are any comments out here, feel free. We'd like to hear your thoughts. And
As I was watching 3ABN this morning, it was talking about that idle hands. I don't know, I shouldn't start saying things, but if you don't have anything to do, you know, they were working their tails off over there in Egypt, and they get out there, and all they had to do is follow, and God provided food and water and things, and they didn't have to do anything much. I'm not saying that they didn't, because camping out, you know, and they had to take care of the animals and things, but it wasn't the same. And sometimes when we don't have things to do to keep our minds occupied and things, we have a tendency to look back and do things we shouldn't do too.
yeah, an idle mind is the devil's playpen, something like that. So anyway, then they, of course, the next page on Monday, Moses' brother and sister rebelled against him. And we're causing a lot of problems.
They were grouching because he'd married a Cushite.
Well, they didn't like his wife.
Yeah,
So
her skin
personally,
was dark.
they wanted to throw Moses out and take over. Pretty much, you know, they decided that they would be much more qualified to be the leaders. It sounds like. And what did the Lord react to that? What happened? You remember? Go ahead.
Well, he responded immediately, and he put a check to that, and Miriam ended up with leprosy for, was it a week or so? Probably more than that.
A week to 10 days at least, yeah.
Yes.
Wasn't it that she got leprosy? But when Moses asked for intercession for her, that he took it away right away, but her consequences, she had to go outside of the camp for a week and live outside before she could be with the rest of them.
Well, that's a very good point. And it's just like you mentioned, it's God will forgive sin, and we will have a chance at eternal life and be able to go to the new heavenly Canaan, the new Jerusalem.
Amen.
But we still have to face the consequences here on earth. I mean, for example, David, he slept with Bathsheba, killed her husband, And in the end, well, you got to think about it. He was rebuked, but did God forgive him? Yes. But that didn't mean that suddenly he took the sin away or the consequences of it. The child that he had with Bathsheba died. He lost a couple of sons, and he just faced a lot of torment and war. And, it just reminds me of, and looking at that, it's just, when I look at these, I realize that God is not just a God of mercy, but also of justice. Because if God just simply said, okay, Moses, that's fine, I forgive her, I'll let her go for now. Because if the Bible was filled with that kind of stuff, we would be questioning God's authority, wouldn't it? Because these are moments where God has to step in and say, I forgive you, but I am both your father, your king, and your God, and you should not have done that, and you still have to face the consequences. I love you, but I also love you enough to not let the other people blaspheme my name and make me look like I have no backbone. It just goes to show God's character, and even in those reproofs, even in our infidelity, we and many others can see that God is firm and he does have a backbone.
I'm so glad that God is the judge. I don't think I could have ever forgiven David personally. I mean, to me, he just did the most rotten things a man could do. I would have a really hard time.
Well, you look around, in our church or around our neighbors or family and everything, that everybody has a tendency to judge. Well, did you see so-and-so do such and such? I'd never do that. Well, so-and-so did so-and-so. And I thought, then I think to myself, well, who are we? I'm not the judge. I'm so glad I'm not the judge. Like when Samuel went to anoint David as being the king, they went through all the different sons, and God told them, no, not that one. You're looking at the appearance, the beauty of the man, and the looks of the big shoulders and stuff, but I look at the heart. And thank goodness God is looking at the heart and knows the reason why the person is in the problems they're having. And that we're not the judge, because none of us would make it in this earth, this world, if it was up to us.
Okay, we're on the Tuesday lesson now. The spies were sent into the land of Canaan, 12 spies, to explore the land. At which point are the expectations of the Israelites dashed? Just about as soon as the spies got back and the 10 gave their report, I think they thought, forget this. And the fact that they wanted to stone the 2 spies that were trying to encourage them and saying, let's go get it done. And the congregation or whatever was ready to stone them for trying to follow God's instructions.
The interesting part is when Israelites came out of Egypt, they were upset because God had them going around a different way.
Went the long route.
The wrong route.
Yeah.
And God had his purpose. He says they couldn't fight with those other nations that were around during that time. They couldn't make it. So he made it out so they could learn how to be, Mm-hmm. And then here they come. They've gone through all this time, and they get to the place where they can go in to the promised land. And, we can do it. Yeah. So they send the spies over, and when the spies come back, we saw these giants over there, and we saw this and that, and they just brought all these grapes and great big all fruits and stuff, and they says, it's wonderful, but look, we couldn't even take care of ourselves against them. We're like little grasshoppers and everything. And you can tell they did not have that faith. Joshua and Caleb did. He knew that they could do it. They knew, because you have to have faith that God will make things work.
And they had the connection. They were ready to do what was instructed.
Dante, you said something?
Oh, thank you. You know, I was just thinking about this very true saying that I read for my morning devotional. It was from My Life Today. It went something like this, that if we are seeking for, something to complain about, something to whine about, we're going to easily find it. What we look for, we will find. But if we desire to look for the good, desire to look for the positive, we will find it just as easily as an excuse to complain. Well, not always, but still, we can find it. You see, with the children of Israel, or with the 10 spies right there, they all decided, you know what? They were looking at all the negative circumstances. They were looking at the circumstances, and they were making those bigger than God. Mm-hmm. And because of their infidelity, they were saying, we can't do this. These guys are big. They're like NBA football players or basketball players. We can't do this. This is ridiculous. We got to go back to Egypt. And then you have Joshua and Caleb, and it's just what I'm trying to get to here is when you complain, when you whine to others of your grievances, that can have a negative effect. You can probably get out of that, but that negative character is going to stain someone, and it can spread like a plague, like this virus that we're currently having. And when you had those two people who wanted to go against the crowd, they were almost stoned to death. And they were at that point rebelling against God because God chose them. But anyways, getting straight to the point. When we look for something, we are going to find it. But we should be very careful with complaining and negativity. I admit, I came to church with a bit of a bad mood. I'm not going to explain it right now, but I realized I needed a change of attitude. I needed to change my attitude, otherwise it's going to discourage someone. It's important that we have a cheerful conduct. Of course, our circumstances may be bad, but we can have peace and joy.
That's right, Dante. Good. Well said. So these Israelites this time, after they repented again for trying to stone Caleb and Joshua, how much time do we have? What time are we supposed to quit here? Does anybody know? 10:15? What time are we supposed to stop, George? 10:30? Oh, okay. We got lots of time. But these people that repented and decided, oh, well, we'll go and take them. And what happened to them? The Lord wasn't with them.
They were
They
killed,
weren't following the Lord.
chased off and killed.
They were destroyed, pretty much destroyed. And then the Lord gave them 40 more years in the wilderness to get their act together.
That's why they tried to run up against
Right.
on their own when they heard we
Right.
have to go back in that
You
wilderness
have
for
to go
40
back in
years.
that wilderness, so now they're ready to attack. Yeah.
Too late.
Too late. It's over, yeah. It's a sad situation, but boy, I'll tell you what, it's so much like us today. It just is scary almost.
You got something, Dante?
Were we on Wednesday or on Thursday?
Well, I guess I skipped up to Wednesday there.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of jumping around. But everybody's talking about something ahead and something behind.
So any thoughts on that? Another confession and what they went through? And
I just wanted to quickly focus on Wednesday. Just had a bit of a comment on that.
okay.
It's called an intercessor. So Wednesday, in a sense, gives us a small little break of rebellion and whatnot. And we have Moses, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And especially after listening to all of the Bible and Living Sound, all the audio Bibles about how the children of Israel were just rebelling left and right, one step after another. I mean, I admit, I was just, I myself was thinking, man, I'd destroy him too. But I am so glad that God is judge, like you said, Elder Buck, because if any of us were in his throne room deciding who would go to heaven and who would go to hell, we'd be choosing all the self-righteous hypocrites, and we'd be throwing out all the murderers and the drug addicts.
That's probably right. Yeah.
And
The hypocrites, yeah,
Yeah.
we'd be letting them in because they look great.
yeah, but like I was saying, the thing that fascinated me the most was the kind of love and patience that Moses had.
Yes.
Because before, when he was, in his 40s and whatnot, still having some sort of authority in Egypt, he was, impatient, he was hasty, and he thought he was going to have to free the children of Israel via arms, causing like a rebellion and overthrowing the Egyptians and getting out of there. But eventually he's cast into the wilderness after slaying that Egyptian, and he learns to be patient at the age of 80 or so. And he has that sort of Christ-like love. And it's just beautiful to see those kind of elements that we usually find in the New Testament in the Old Testament, because you got some people thinking God is a God of wrath, of anger, and Moses was some old crook. Yeah, thank you. But in this, we see that Moses loves them as if they were his own, grandchildren, his own children. And he's saying, Lord, I know that they have sinned against you. There's no doubt about it. They never argue. But he intercedes, not because he himself is righteous, but because he claims the promises of God. Sometimes we make the mistake of thinking, we're not good. We have to leave and whatnot. God can't forgive me for this sin that we did in the past. But what we see Moses doing is that instead of focusing on himself or on them, he throws himself on God and he says, you promised this, therefore I claim it. I have nothing to bring. Only to thy cross, O Lord, do I cling.
And he was willing to sacrifice himself, I think, at that point. If the Lord needed to destroy somebody, take me. Save these people. That's basically what he was saying.
God is love.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
also
that's
mentioned
right.
about those around, like the Egyptians. If they hear that you did this, and they'll say, well, he just took them out there to kill
Yeah.
them, and so had to, and God even said he would make Moses the head of another.
Right. Destroy these people, and he would be the father of the new nation. Yes.
So Moses, in his own way, was kind of like Jesus because he was an intercessor. Like Jesus came later and he interceded for us. And he is in heaven right now interceding for us.
That's why, to me, personally, it's very important to read the Word of God every day, because, honestly, I don't understand yet his love toward me. Picture this. There's a town of people, the Israelites. They're going out and they're complaining. And then all of a sudden, God is like, man, these people are complaining for everything. I have given everything. I did everything for them. That is God. Because he says, when Moses says, what your name is, he says, the great I am. So that's him, that's God, right? So these people is like, they have God, they have everything, but yet they're complaining. To the point that God says, okay, I'm going to kill them all. The question I made myself is like, was he really going to do it? Or he was just also testing Moses? Like, okay, let's see what kind of leader I chose. Is he a truly leader? Or is he I remember when I went through this, I remember this pastor talking, and says, in your church, your leaders, don't forget, yes, the people vote for them, your name is on the list, but truly is God who chooses them. And whenever then these are a big meeting, and then all of a sudden somebody comes saying, oh well, at this point of my career, maybe the presidency will be like the cherry on the cake. I says, no, when somebody comes to you saying, oh, let me do this, I want to be this, don't. Because it is God who chooses them, because God knows who are the real leaders that he wants and needs in the church, because those are the ones that will make the others follow God, because they will be the example. And when lately we have the committee nominee and all that going on, and I'm like, Father, are you sure you want me to do that? When I come to church, well, my name is on it. And I'm like, okay. That's why I said, Lord, I don't understand you. Help me understand your love, your mercy towards me and towards humanity, because I don't understand that. How can you still love us after all the things that we have done as humans?
Well, that's why this story is in the Bible about the Israelites. That should encourage us. I mean, as bad as they were, as rebellious as they were still God's people, and he forgave them and wanted to take care of them, provide for them, and he's doing the same thing for us.
What a leader they had. What a leader they had. That even after these people start rebelling, Moses did not give up on them also. Instead, he put himself in front of the line that was between the people of Israel and God. He put himself between them and was interceding for them and was taking everything, because he was the leader that God chose. And God chose him. And oh, Lord, if we only have those leaders today.
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, when God told Moses to go down, he said, oh, no. He says, I can't do that. He says, I can't speak. And then he sent Aaron. He says, Aaron can talk for you. So they met in the desert and went into Egypt, and Aaron did the talking. But that's what Moses was supposed to do, and that made him humble. And what's marvelous to me is to think that he's in heaven now. Moses is in heaven, and I think, wow,
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
It's interesting to note that, what was I going to say? When it comes to Moses, he always pointed the Israelites to the Lord. Whenever he was angry, he was never angry for himself. He always said, why are you complaining against me? You're complaining, you're not murmuring against me, you're murmuring against God.
That's right.
And the only time God really started getting on his case was when he was just, in a bad mood, and he says, like, must I fetch you out some water?
That's right.
It's like, no, or God had to come down and say, no, you got it wrong. And now you have sinned. You got to stay out of the promised land now. It just goes to show, because when we make it about ourselves, like, I want to do the Sabbath School panel, I want to do the children's story, I want to be voted or be a nominee for this and that, when God is out of the picture and our sentences start with I, me, we're in big trouble. We got to repent, and we got to make that submission to God and say, Lord, please forgive me for my selfishness. I know that I've been complaining only for myself. Have mercy on me, Lord. Have mercy on all of us, because we have that selfishness. Our own compass is pointing to us, not to God, not to others, but to us.
Yeah.
Often when I hear people talking about the I's, anybody that knows about Nebuchadnezzar, I think about him, because, I made this, I made Babylon, and I made so-and-so. And the next thing, he'd been warned that if he did that again, that he would lose his mind and have to go out in the field and eat grass and things. And it did. He had about a year, and then he got up there, I, and it happened. But after 7 years, then he went and he understood. And so we know that he will be in heaven, because he believed in God after that and accepted God.
You know, it's very interesting, and I don't mean to take up much time, but it's interesting how it starts off with him talking about himself, and the last thing that is recorded in the Bible before his death, or before he passes away in the Bible, he goes from rejoicing and praising his own works to praising the God of heaven.
Right.
You know, that's my desire today.
Yeah. And he actually wrote one of the chapters in Daniel. Yeah. A totally changed and repentant man, and that's where we need to be. We need to be focused on Christ and connected with Christ for everything, our next breath, everything.
We know with Daniel, he and his 3 friends, they made up their mind right away when they got there. They started out with food. They were going to follow God. They were going to do what's right. And we're getting off into another subject. But if Israel did that, we're going to do this, we're going to do this and that, then God would bless us if we obey. That's our choice, to love and obey.
That's it.
Well, we only have about 11 minutes on the clock, Elder Buck, so would it seem right that we focus on Thursday?
Let's go. Okay, what similarities do you see in Israel's wandering in the wilderness and God's people living just prior to the second coming of Jesus? Man alive, is that telling, huh? The same attitudes, the same rebellion, the same, I'll do it myself. Don't be trying to tell me what to do and what I need to do and how to do. And
Well, news, I get so I don't even want to watch it anymore.
yeah,
Or commercials or whatever. It's the same old things over and over. Somebody did me wrong. Someone did that. And someone said something to me, and it's always something. They're not looking to how they are. What right do they have to go out and kill somebody? Just because somebody did something to them, Or they ran me off the road. So they get a gun and go out and shoot somebody going along the road. You never know what's going to happen when you go out in the world now.
Somebody told me, well, the Israel back then, they had God with them. They had the column of fire and they had the cloud and they knew God. I said, so what's the difference? Well, I don't see God. I said, well, do you need something? Do you need food? You don't have a house or you don't have... No, I got everything, but I don't see God. I said, well, what else do you need?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Would you agree with me that God's hand is in this country, right? It's
Absolutely.
like Pastor Pomper said once, it's interesting with the United States. In the world, they want to go out of their countries. They want to come in. And us, we don't want to go out. We want to stay in here. So God is here. God is everywhere. But what I'm trying to get at is the similarities is that some of us here still like the Israelites.
Yeah.
We have everything. We have God. We have the freedom to come and worship. At least now that the churches are open, we can come and worship. We can come and worship God. And we still complain.
Well, it's kind of like Dante said, if you're looking to do the wrong things, you'll find it. If you're looking to follow Jesus, then you'll find the way. God is there with us if we really want it.
That's
It's
where you're
our
looking.
choice.
Yeah, that's where you're looking. Go ahead, Dante.
Thank you, Elder Buck. On these closing minutes, I personally believe that God allowed this church to be closed in the midst of the pandemic so we could so he could help us to see what we've been neglecting. I admit I never really cherished church as much as I did until I came back to Christ, and even then I still had my idols. And God realized that I would be lost in the church if he didn't close it. I'm not saying he closed it just because of me, but I believe that he allows these things to happen to say, okay, you don't understand this, I'm going to have to take it away so you can better understand it. And, I missed the potluck, I missed the desserts. Well, not just that, but I missed the congregation as a whole. I wasn't appreciating it, but I was like a self-righteous hypocrite during those early months of being like a baby Christian. And as I grew to appreciate God, and I grew to appreciate fellowship with the church. That's why I'm so happy that's why I'm very glad that the churches are open. But adding on to this, I'm just thinking about we as Seventh-day Adventists. God chose the Israelites to bring the gospel to the Gentiles, to those that were around them. They didn't do their part. They rebelled, and they got destroyed in the end when the Romans came to Jerusalem. And we have been raised up as a church by God, and we've been around since, for soon enough, it's going to be 200 years, just a few more decades.
That's right.
God's calling us, and we meet the same temptations of wanting to go back into the bondage of sin, not the Egyptians, but spiritual bondage, sin. Mm-hmm. And God is calling us today to say, okay, enough of this complaining, enough of all of this. I don't want the world. I want to repent. I want to come to Jesus. I want to have my heart right with God. And friends, that is available today.
Just accept it.
Accept it.
It's there. It's free. Put your hand out. Take the hand that's reached down to you. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And everything is for a purpose, Dante. I believe that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he's trying to get through to us, trying to end up with a people who will obey. That's the thing. We need to obey. We need to follow in faith.
He wants to take us to the promised land.
Absolutely.
And just like the Israelites, we're wandering around.
That's
Around. He's coming soon. Jesus is coming soon.
For more than 40 years, golly, we've been wandering. That's right.
More is right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sad situation, and we have all this as our examples, and that's the Bible tells us that's what it's there for. Look at this and understand, and don't repeat.
As we're closing, I know you wouldn't mind if I just share a little bit of the further thought, just some of the highlights, and
Go ahead.
if you don't mind, in order to close. Faith claims God's promises and brings forth fruit in obedience. Presumption also claims the promises but uses them as Satan did, to excuse transgression. It is not faith that claims the favor of heaven without complying with the conditions on which mercy is to be granted. Genuine faith has its foundation in the promises and provisions of the Scriptures. The children of Israel, when they had that ability to go, they rebelled. But when that ability or when that privilege was taken away, they wanted to do it anyways because they saw what they lost. And I'm just thinking, I'll make this close quick and then we can close. If that's how the children of Israel responded when they missed out on that earthly Canaan, how much more are we going to face it if we choose to go after the leeks and the onions and go back into Egypt? When all of a sudden, just as we're enjoying the pleasures, when we're at the height of that temporal, sensual pleasure, God says, that's it.
Yep.
That's enough. I don't want any, that's it. You don't want me, that's fine, but I'm taking this away. If that's how they reacted when they missed out on earthly Canaan, how much more are the lost going to feel when they miss out on that heavenly Canaan?
Yeah.
Friends, I know, best way I could say it is please choose a Jesus now, because it's going to be bad. Don't just choose him because you want to avoid the hardships, but choose him because you love him. Choose him because you want to know him now. If you do it for anything other than that, it's going to be misery.
Well said, Dante. Would you have a word of prayer for us and close?
It'd be a privilege. Our dear Heavenly Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Lord. Precious Father in heaven, we come before you and thank you for the Sabbath school that we've enjoyed today. We pray, Lord, that hopefully we led other people to you and that we weren't speaking of our traditions, of our fables and preconceived ideas and prejudice, but we pray that hopefully someone, at least just one person, was touched by this. Father God, forgive us for the sin of complaining, for the sin of whining and wanting to go back into sin. If we have imparted any negative influence upon other people, we pray that you forgive us of those sins and that you may wash both them and us thoroughly from the sin of complaining and negativity. Father, as we get ready, we pray that you may help us to choose you and say yes to you each and every day, that we may not claim your promises out of presumption, but out of faith. Please come into our hearts, especially as we close the Sabbath School panel and as we enter into our regular fellowship. Please empty us of self, give us peace of mind, and forgive us and cleanse us of all unrighteousness, for you so promised it to us in 1 John 1:9. May your peace and your Holy Spirit be with us all, and may it dwell on this holy church, this your holy temple, as we come together and praise your name and hear today's message. We pray this and ask in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, that not our will, but your will be done. Amen.
Amen.
See you at 10:45.
Right on the money.